You've journaled every day. You've lit the candles, repeated the affirmations, even tried to feel as if your desires were already here. You've told yourself to stay positive, to trust the universe, to keep your vibration high. But deep down, there's a voice that's growing louder. A quiet, bitter whisper that asks, if I'm doing everything right, why is nothing happening? It's the kind of exhaustion that doesn't just tire your body. It fractures your faith. You start wondering if manifestation is even real, or if it's just another fantasy dressed up in spiritual language. And that's the most painful part. Because you believed, you really did. And now, you're sitting with the weight of that disappointment, confused, angry, maybe even ashamed to admit it out loud. You keep scrolling through videos and posts telling you to trust divine timing, to hold the vision, to surrender. But how do you surrender when your rent is due? How do you trust when everything around you screams that nothing is working? And worse, how do you keep going when it feels like the universe is ignoring you? The truth is, you're not crazy for feeling this way. You're not broken. And most importantly, it's not your fault. You've been following the formula you were taught. Visualize, believe, receive. But something vital was never explained to you. Not in those videos, not in those books, not even in the masterclasses promising to unlock your abundance. No one told you that manifestation isn't about wanting harder. It's not about doing more rituals. And it's definitely not about faking positivity while quietly drowning in fear. The real reason manifestation isn't working for you is much deeper and much simpler than anyone ever told you. It's not about the method. It's about the energy behind the method. It's about who you're being when you manifest, not what you're doing. Because here's the unfiltered truth. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. That one sentence changes everything. Because it means the universe isn't reacting to your desires. It's mirroring your state of being. It's not listening to your words. It's reading your frequency. That's why someone can write the same affirmations as you, visualize just as often but get wildly different results. Their inner broadcast is aligned. Yours, despite all the effort, is still coated with doubt, frustration, and silent resistance. You've been taught to focus on clarity, goals, intentions. But the missing piece, the piece 99% of people never realize, is frequency coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, body, and identity are not speaking the same energetic language, the field reads it as noise, not a signal. And noise never gets answered. What you've likely been doing is manifesting from misalignment. You say, I am abundant, while your nervous system screams fear. You try to attract love while you're still broadcasting abandonment. You visualize your dream life, but your body feels like you're still stuck in survival mode. That energetic dissonance is not just a small error. It's the exact reason nothing's showing up. And the more you repeat these surface-level techniques without real coherence, the more the inner war grows. You begin to think you're the problem, that you're not spiritual enough, disciplined enough, worthy enough. But the problem isn't you. The problem is the outdated way you've been taught to manifest. A way that focuses on external action, but ignores the deeper architecture of your identity. This is the silent crisis most people never talk about. The burnout of those who've tried every method and still feel stuck. The shame of knowing what you want and not knowing why you can't have it. The secret grief of spiritual people who feel betrayed by the very tools meant to set them free. But there's good news. You're closer than you think. Because if you're here, if you're listening to this, it means you're ready. Ready to stop chasing results and start becoming the version of you that those results naturally belong to. Ready to stop playing the part and start being the signal. You're not here to force the universe into compliance. You're here to align with what's already yours. The field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to clarity. And clarity begins not with what you want, but with who you are when you ask. So let's get honest. Who have you been being? Not what you've been doing, but who you've been being in your energy, in your beliefs, in your moment-to-moment embodiment. That's the signal that's shaping your reality. That's the identity the quantum field is tuning into. If you've been stuck, it's because your current self-image, your broadcasted identity, is not a match for the future you're trying to receive. It's that simple. And once you understand that, you gain the power to collapse the old identity and step into alignment. Not slowly, not over years, but now, in the next 48 hours. This is not about more knowledge. It's about deeper truth. A truth that says your current reality is not a punishment. It's feedback. It's showing you where your signal is fuzzy, where your coherence is broken, and where your opportunity for transformation truly lives. You're not being tested. You're being shown. And if you can stop resisting that, if you can start reading your reality not as rejection, but as reflection, you can begin to shift timelines fast. But first, you have to let go of the lie that you just need to try harder. You don't need more effort. You need a new frequency. You need internal congruence. Because manifestation is not a wish. It's a broadcast. And right now, your broadcast might be full of static. So here's the invitation. Drop the guilt. Drop the performance. Drop the obsession with doing it right. Instead, lean into the one question that matters most. Who am I being right now? And is it aligned with the future I say I want? In the next part, we'll expose exactly why the techniques you've been using have failed. Not because they're wrong, but because they're incomplete. We'll go deep into the science and spirit behind energetic alignment and show you the hidden mechanics of the quantum field that most people completely overlook. This is the truth behind why 99% fail and how you can step into the 1% who finally get it. Most people don't fail to manifest because they lack belief. They fail because they misunderstand the mechanism. They think manifestation is about repeating the right words, visualizing with intensity, or feeling good for long enough. But the truth is far more nuanced and far more liberating. If you've struggled, it's not because you weren't positive enough. It's because no one told you how this really works. Let's get brutally clear. You are not manifesting from your thoughts. You are not manifesting from your mood. You are manifesting from your dominant frequency, the energetic signature your entire system emits without you trying. That frequency is built from your identity, what you believe to be true about yourself, your life, and what's possible for you. It's not what you affirm, it's what you broadcast. And broadcasting happens on autopilot. This is where most manifestation teachings fall flat. They focus on surface-level practices, but ignore the engine underneath. You can't just plaster high-vibe phrases over a foundation of fear. The universe doesn't respond to language. It responds to coherence. And if your body, mind, and emotion are out of sync, what you send into the field is not a clear request. It's static. Imagine trying to tune a radio to a specific station, but the antenna is broken, the signal is scrambled, and you're shouting over white noise. That's what it's like to manifest from a misaligned self. No matter how beautiful your vision board is, if your internal wiring is built on lack, insecurity, or self-doubt, that's what the field hears. It reflects what's alive in you now, not what you hope for later. Let's connect this to science for a moment. In quantum physics, there's something called the observer effect. The act of observing a quantum system actually influences its state. But here's the part that gets skipped. It's not just about looking. It's about the state of the observer. Your observation is not neutral. It's embedded with emotion, identity, expectation, and those shape the outcome. You are not just looking at your life. You're collapsing its possibilities into a single experience, based on the energetic frequency of your observer self. This is why people stuck in fear or scarcity often get more fear and scarcity, even when they do all the right things. Their observation isn't just passive, it's programming the result. Then there's quantum entanglement. This theory tells us that particles once connected remain energetically linked, regardless of distance. The same applies to you and your desired reality. It already exists in potential form, But to entangle with it, to experience it, you have to tune your frequency to the same vibrational code. Otherwise, you're like a radio trying to pick up a frequency it's not wired to receive. Now layer in psychology. Your subconscious mind is responsible for over 90% of your thoughts, actions, and decisions. It doesn't care what you consciously want. It cares what you consistently expect. And it's trained by repetition and emotional imprint. So if you grew up believing money is hard to get, or love means betrayal, or success always costs you peace, those beliefs are still running under the surface. No matter how many affirmations you say out loud, that's why people get stuck in the same loops. They don't need more strategy. They need identity recalibration. You can't plant a seed of abundance in soil conditioned for survival. It will not grow. You'll sabotage the outcome before it even begins, because your system is allergic to receiving what doesn't match your self-image. Even the body plays a role. Your nervous system is a frequency filter. It will literally reject experiences that don't feel safe, even if they're what you consciously want. That's why your heart races before opportunity. That's why you feel tired after visualizing. Your system isn't resisting the outcome. It's resisting the identity you'd have to become to receive it. And this is where most people give up. They try to manifest from their current energetic identity, the one that created the reality they're trying to escape. But that version of you isn't meant to attract the new timeline. That version is collapsing. And trying to manifest from a collapsing identity is like trying to write a new story with a pen that's out of ink. So what do you do instead? You stop focusing on controlling outcomes, and you start aligning your energy with the version of you that naturally receives those outcomes. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "Who do I need to become for that reality to feel normal?" Because here's the truth. If your dream still feels foreign, your frequency still says not yet. This is the pivot most people never make. They stay in the loop of needing, hoping, proving. But manifestation doesn't work through need. It works through embodiment. The you who already has what you want isn't desperate. They're not pushing. They're not bargaining with the universe. They're radiating clarity. That's what draws the future in. So if you've been doing the work but getting no results, it's not your fault. You were never taught the physics of identity. You were told to visualize, not to vibrate. You were told to wish, not to wire your nervous system for certainty. But now, you know better. You know that manifestation isn't about attracting something outside of you. It's about syncing who you are with what already exists in the quantum field. The shift starts not with action, but with alignment. The inner frequency you carry is the only command the universe ever hears. And it's time to change that signal. In the next part, we'll go beyond theory and into application. You'll learn how to create a total quantum shift in just 2 days, not through effort, but through frequency. We'll show you how to collapse your old identity, embody the new, and signal the field with absolute coherence. If you've ever wanted a reset that actually works, this is where it begins. If you've been manifesting from effort, it's time to stop. Not because effort is wrong, but because it's the wrong tool for this kind of transformation. You don't manifest with more pushing. You manifest with more precision. The future you want isn't waiting for you to chase it. It's waiting for you to match it. This is the real quantum leap. Not a flash of light or sudden miracle, but a shift so deep in your internal state that reality begins to bend around it. You're not bending the universe by force. You're syncing with a version of it that's already coded with your desired outcome. That's the quantum truth. And once you understand how frequency coherence works, everything changes. Let's slow this down and make it practical. Your frequency isn't some abstract spiritual concept. It's the vibrational output generated by your emotional state, your embodied identity, and your dominant patterns of thought. If those three don't align, your signal is fragmented. And a fragmented signal never delivers consistent results. That's why some days things flow, and other days it feels like you're blocked. It's not the world that's shifting. It's your coherence. Coherence is when all parts of you, mind, body, emotion, and intention, are aligned in one clear broadcast. It's when your nervous system feels safe, your identity feels true, your thoughts feel certain, and your emotions feel calm. In that state, you become magnetic, not metaphorically, but literally. You stop sending out mixed messages. You become a tuning fork, pulling experiences that match your new frequency. That's not wishful thinking. That's field physics. So the real work isn't visualizing harder. It's broadcasting clearer. And that clarity doesn't come from more affirmations. It comes from an identity shift so authentic that your system relaxes and finally says, yes, this is me now. The moment you stop needing the future and start being the version of you who naturally lives it, time collapses. That's when reality begins to reorganize itself. And that's not magic. That's mechanics. Here's what most people miss. Manifestation isn't about getting what you want. It's about becoming who you need to be in order to receive what's already available. That means upgrading your frequency, not your to-do list. You're not being punished for dreaming big. You're being called to embody bigger. The future you're craving already exists, but right now, it's invisible to you because you're out of sync with it. Let's make that real. Think about a radio station. The music exists whether or not your radio is tuned in. But if you're off by even one frequency point, you hear nothing but static. That's how manifestation works. The station is there. Your dream is already playing. But your identity, the frequency of who you're being day to day, isn't tuned in. That's why you're not hearing it. That's why you keep chasing instead of receiving. And here's where identity collapse comes in. Most people try to manifest from their current self, hoping to upgrade their life without upgrading their signal. But your current self is the one that created your current reality. It cannot be the source of something radically new. You can't receive new timelines while broadcasting the same identity. That version of you must collapse. Not in pain, not in failure, but in choice. Identity collapse is the conscious decision to stop rehearsing who you've been. It's the choice to release the patterns, beliefs, and micro-behaviors that tie you to the timeline you no longer want. And yes, it's uncomfortable. But so is staying stuck. So is waking up every day in a life that feels smaller than your potential. The discomfort of change is temporary. The pain of staying the same is forever. Now, here's the good news. You don't need years of work to shift. You don't need to heal every wound or clear every block. You need alignment. You need a moment of full-body yes. You need to send the clearest, boldest, most unapologetic frequency of truth into the field, and sustain it just long enough for reality to mirror it back. That's why most people get glimpses of magic but never sustain it. They shift for a moment, get a taste, then snap back to their old self-image because it feels safer. But the field doesn't reward temporary bursts. It responds to stability. The longer you hold the new signal, the faster the old one disintegrates. That's not spiritual theory. That's energetic consistency. So ask yourself right now, if the version of you that already had everything you wanted could speak through you today, how would you walk? How would you breathe? What would you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop fearing? That version of you exists, and every moment you embody it, you collapse the distance between now and then. This is the quantum shift, not a spell, not a trick, a realignment of frequency that makes receiving inevitable. And yes, it's simple, not easy, but simple, which is why it works so fast. When your frequency is clear, your reality obeys. In the next part, we're going to show you exactly how to do this in the next 48 hours. You'll get a complete, step-by-step protocol for collapsing your old identity, choosing your new signal, and broadcasting it with coherence and clarity. You'll learn how to make the shift not just in theory, but in your nervous system, in your emotions, in your real-time behavior. Because this isn't about waiting for change, it's about becoming it, right now. Here's what you need to know right now. Change doesn't take years. It doesn't even take months. Change, real, radical, reality-bending change, can happen in a single moment of full-body alignment. And you can start that shift within the next 48 hours. Not because you've mastered everything, but because you've finally dropped the illusion that there's anything outside of you you need to chase. The only thing that has ever created delay in your manifestation is incoherence between who you say you are and who you're actually being in the field. You don't need more time. You need a reset. Not a reset of your schedule, your relationships, or your goals. A reset of your signal. Because until that shifts, nothing else will. The 2-day reset is not a hack. It's not a ritual. It's a blueprint for collapsing the outdated identity that's keeping your frequency fragmented and replacing it with one so aligned, so stable, that the field has no choice but to respond. Let's begin with the collapse. Most people try to build the new while still carrying the energy of the old. But you can't step into a new frequency if you're dragging the residue of your previous identity behind you. You must get radically honest. What beliefs are still running in the background that contradict the reality you want? What emotional addictions are you still feeding, even subconsciously? What roles are you still playing that were never aligned with who you truly are? Collapse isn't destruction. It's choice. It's looking at the pattern and deciding with full clarity, this is not me anymore. You're not erasing your past. You're closing the loop. The moment you decide to stop energizing the identity that's been surviving instead of thriving, you release your frequency from the loop of repetition. And that's when the shift becomes possible. After collapse comes clarity. The question is simple, though most never ask it clearly. Who is the version of me that already lives the life I desire? Not what do they have, but how do they walk, think, speak, move, feel, breathe? What energy do they emit without trying? This is not imagination. This is configuration. The version of you that holds your dream reality is not theoretical. It already exists in the quantum field. You're not creating it from scratch. You're tuning in. Spend time becoming familiar with this version, not just mentally but somatically. Feel what it would be like to live a day in their body. What would no longer feel urgent? What emotions would be dominant? What decisions would be made from trust instead of fear? This is not a game of pretending. It's a practice of anchoring. Every time you do this, you're not fantasizing. You're broadcasting. And the field listens to repetition. The most powerful question you can ask during this reset is not, how do I get there? But what would my quantum self do right now? This single question, repeated consistently, has the power to reorganize your entire timeline, because it pulls you out of your old autopilot and forces you to embody a new state. When you ask that question before you eat, before you speak, before you respond to a challenge, you're shifting the architecture of your identity in real time. Then comes the broadcast. This is where you stop waiting for reality to change and start embodying the frequency of change itself. Broadcasting isn't loud. It's not effortful. It's the silent certainty that emanates from a system no longer confused about who it is. You broadcast when your body, mind, and spirit are all saying the same thing. You broadcast when your thoughts match your actions, and your emotional state matches your vision. During these 2 days, your only job is to protect your coherence. That means not explaining yourself to people who can't understand the new you. That means stepping away from conversations, environments, or content that pull you back into a frequency of doubt. You don't owe anyone access to your signal while it's recalibrating. This window is sacred. You're not just upgrading habits, you're updating your field. And the universe responds fastest to those who stop diluting their energy with external noise. At night, before you sleep, reinforce the signal. This is when your subconscious is most open to suggestion. Instead of passively drifting into sleep with fear or overthinking, enter the quantum. Feel yourself already having what you want, not as a wish, but as a certainty. Let your last thought be a broadcast of embodiment. This practice alone, repeated with emotional precision, can begin shifting your outer world within hours. And yes, results can show up that fast. Not always as the final outcome, but as undeniable proof that something has moved. You may get a message you weren't expecting. A door may open where there was only a wall. You may feel a sudden lightness, a clarity, or even a sense of detachment from what used to trigger you. These are not coincidences. They are signs that your frequency is stabilizing into a new configuration. And once you hold that configuration long enough, physical reality must conform. It's not theory, it's physics. But be warned, your old identity will try to reclaim you. Not because it's evil, but because it's familiar. You'll be tempted to test the shift by looking for proof too soon. Don't. The moment you start seeking validation from the external world, you've dropped out of coherence and back into dependence. Stay steady. The real proof is how you feel before the result shows up. If you feel stable, whole, and grounded, then the manifestation is already inevitable. This reset isn't about perfection. It's about frequency awareness. It's about making your inner world so clear, so congruent, that the outer world begins to mirror it without resistance. And once you experience that level of power, you'll never again chase outcomes the same way. You'll stop begging life to change and start choosing the version of you that changes life by being it. This is your moment. 2 days, 48 hours. Not to fix yourself, but to finally embody the self that was always aligned with the life you desire. The question is not whether the universe will respond. It's whether you will hold the signal long enough for it to, because when you do, everything begins to move, fast. In the next part, we'll take this shift out of theory and show you how it has already transformed real lives. You'll hear powerful stories of people who use this exact method to leap timelines, attract extraordinary breakthroughs, and finally experience the kind of reality most only dream of. These aren't exceptions. They're mirrors. Proof that when your signal is clear, the field always answers. There's something powerful that happens when theory meets reality. It's one thing to understand the mechanics of frequency, coherence, and quantum identity. It's another to see those principles rewrite real lives, fast, tangibly, and irreversibly. Because when you witness change through someone else's shift, something inside you wakes up. A deeper belief takes root. Not because it sounds good, but because it's undeniable. Let's begin with Marissa. A single mother in her early 40s, she had been unemployed for nearly a year. Despite applying for dozens of jobs, visualizing, meditating, and reciting affirmations daily, nothing seemed to move. Bills piled up, self-doubt grew louder. She began to believe she had failed not just her dream, but her child. Then, during a sleepless night, she stumbled upon a simple question. What would the version of me who already has the job act like tomorrow morning? That question changed everything. Instead of sending out another resume from a place of desperation, she woke up and dressed as if she had already been hired. She prepared her breakfast as if she were planning her workday. She walked her child to school with the posture and calm of a woman already secure. Within 36 hours, a company that had previously ghosted her called with an offer, higher pay than expected, and remote flexibility. When asked what changed, she said, "I stopped waiting for the job to give me security. I became secure, and the job came to me." Then there's Devin, an entrepreneur on the edge of burnout. His company was floundering, and he'd tried every business strategy, funnels, consultants, even cutting-edge marketing. Still, revenue stagnated. The harder he pushed, the more resistance he felt. He came across the idea of energetic congruence and realized his entire business identity was built on fear. Fear of losing status, fear of disappointing his father, fear of failure. He decided to run an experiment. For 48 hours, he abandoned the identity of desperate operator and chose to become the version of himself who had already succeeded. Not by faking confidence, but by deeply embodying the calm, playful, curious energy that had first inspired him to start the company. He walked into meetings without trying to prove himself. He allowed silence. He spoke from clarity, not tension. And within a week, an investor he hadn't spoken to in months reached out with a surprising proposal, an equity partnership that stabilized his business overnight. No marketing, no hustle, just a shift in signal. Or take Asha, a spiritual coach who had all the knowledge, all the training, and yet she secretly doubted her worth. She told herself she was helping others activate their power, but deep down, she hadn't activated her own. Her sessions were filled with insight, but her bank account remained in survival mode. She journaled, prayed, lit candles, but the fear never really left her body. She stumbled across a teaching that changed everything. You don't attract what you say. You attract what your nervous system says yes to. That was the moment she realized her body didn't feel safe receiving money. Her system associated abundance with betrayal, instability, and abandonment, things she had witnessed growing up. So she stopped trying to manifest clients and began reconditioning her nervous system to feel safe in prosperity. She danced. She grounded. She practiced celebrating small wins without guilt. And within 2 days, 2 new clients paid in full for 3-month packages. But more importantly, she felt peace. She felt deserving. She felt no need to prove anything. These are not outliers. They're not magical exceptions. They're the natural result of frequency coherence. Each of them stopped performing and started becoming. They didn't hustle harder. They aligned deeper. And once they did, the field shifted in their favor. Not because the universe was testing them, but because the universe was waiting for a clear enough signal to respond to. You see, results don't come from effort alone. They come from clarity. Clarity of self, clarity of embodiment, clarity of frequency. And once you hit that level of energetic precision, the things you used to chase start to orbit around you. Not because you manipulated the system, but because you finally matched it. This is the invitation of the quantum model. It doesn't ask you to become someone else. It asks you to remember who you were before fear took over, before self-doubt became your baseline, before the world trained you to dilute your own light. You don't need more power. You need more permission. You need to allow yourself to walk as the version of you who stopped needing external proof. Because in this paradigm, your identity leads and reality follows. And maybe right now, as you're listening, something is rising in you. A knowing, a calm certainty, a spark of recognition that this is not about adding more. It's about subtracting the noise, peeling away the misalignments, releasing the stories that no longer serve, and stepping, finally, into the quiet, grounded confidence of someone who no longer needs to try, because they've already become. In the next part, we'll bring everything together. You'll receive one final activation, a call to stop waiting, stop negotiating with your old identity, and begin living as the version of you that already knows. The version that no longer hopes, but chooses. The version that doesn't manifest from lack, but from inevitability. The field is listening. And your next reality is already watching, waiting for your signal. Let's send it. There comes a moment when you can no longer pretend you don't know. When the truth that's been echoing quietly inside of you becomes too loud to ignore. You've seen the patterns. You've felt the friction. You've caught glimpses of who you could be. And now the choice is in front of you, not as a future decision, but as a now or never threshold. You are not here to keep seeking. You are not here to stay stuck in the loop of trying, hoping, doubting, and trying again. You are here to collapse that loop entirely, not with force, but with a different kind of power. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that doesn't negotiate. The kind that comes from full alignment with who you truly are. Because once you become coherent with the future version of you, everything that isn't aligned begins to fall away. Not because you pushed it out, but because it can't exist in the same frequency. This is the paradox that no one tells you. When you stop needing your future to come, it arrives. When you stop begging reality to prove itself, it starts dancing to your rhythm. Not because you've won some spiritual contest, but because you've finally remembered that you were never supposed to be a beggar. You were always the broadcaster, the sender, the signal. And the only thing that's ever mattered is the frequency of that signal. It doesn't care what you say. It doesn't respond to how badly you want something. It only reflects what you are right now. That's why trying harder doesn't help, because effort from misalignment is still misalignment. The shift you've been craving isn't going to happen through more trying. It's going to happen through total clarity, through a decision, through identity. You can't keep trying to manifest while holding on to a version of you that doesn't believe it's possible. You can't keep saying, "I'm ready," while your nervous system screams, "I'm not safe." The universe can only meet you where you actually are. And right now, it's asking, where are you standing? Are you aligned with the life you want? Or still waiting for proof before you let yourself feel like it's real? The invitation isn't to fake it. The invitation is to become it. Not in your words, in your walk, in your breath, in the way you show up to the small, invisible moments that no one else sees. Because that's where the shift happens. Not in the big declarations, but in the quiet decisions you make when no one's watching. The moment you stop scrolling and start listening. The moment you feel the old belief rising and decide not to follow it. The moment you catch your mind drifting into lack and you choose coherence instead. You are not here to chase transformation. You are here to embody it. And embodiment doesn't come from perfection. It comes from consistency. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be clear. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. And you don't have to feel it all the time. You just have to return to it again and again until it becomes your new normal. This is not about doing more. It's about collapsing into truth, into simplicity, into the kind of presence that no longer performs for the world's approval. The kind of presence that knows, I am already it. And that knowing is magnetic. That knowing bends timelines. That knowing is what the field responds to with precision, with speed, with grace. So ask yourself now, with zero filters, who am I choosing to be in this moment? Is it the old version of me? The one who waits, doubts, hesitates? Or is it the quantum self who doesn't ask for permission to embody what's already hers? Because you can't have both. You can't vibrate at fear and receive from freedom. You can't loop in the past while unlocking a new timeline. You must choose. And that's what this moment is. A choice. A sacred line in the sand. Not someday. Not when you have more information or feel more confident. Now. This is the pivot point your future self will look back on. This is the second you stopped collapsing your old reality and began broadcasting something entirely new. And from here, everything shifts, but only if you say yes. Not out loud, in your body, in your frequency, in your actions. The field isn't waiting for another affirmation. It's waiting for a coherent broadcast. And that starts the moment you decide, this is who I am now. So let this be the moment you burn the fallback plan. Let this be the moment you stop explaining your pain and start owning your power. Let this be the moment you turn your someday into right now. Not by wishing, but by embodying. Not by forcing, but by aligning. Not by proving, but by choosing. Because that's all it takes. One clear, grounded, full-body choice. To walk like it's done. To speak like it's true. To live like it's already yours. Not because you're trying to convince the universe, but because you finally stopped convincing yourself that you weren't enough. And if you ever forget, return here. Return to the version of you who doesn't wait to be validated, who doesn't ask for permission, who doesn't dilute their frequency for the comfort of others. Return to the you who sends a signal so clean, so certain, so precise, that the entire field has no choice but to respond. Now it's your turn. Comment below the identity you're ready to collapse. Share the one word that defines the version of you you're now choosing. Subscribe if you're done manifesting from confusion and ready to become the broadcast. And share this message with anyone still stuck in the loop, because the truth doesn't belong to one person. It multiplies when shared. This is not the end. This is the activation, the turning point, the moment reality starts bending, not in your favor, but in your reflection. Not because the universe changed, but because you did, completely, finally, powerfully. The field is listening. The signal is yours to send. Now is the moment to decide. What will you become?